Welcome to Beat Diabetes, where we discuss ways and means to beat that monster that has attacked you. On today's edition, we'll learn of a man who took his diabetes way too casually, until he did a little research and figured out just how bad it was, and suddenly he got the motivation and the excitement to see victory and beat his enemy. We'll also look at 3 rules which you do not need to follow. In fact, you shouldn't. Coming up. Well, this lady says, I would like to personally thank you. My husband is pre-diabetic. We were trying to lower his numbers, and since I'm the cook in the family, I needed to learn to prepare meals to help him. I am vegan, luckily not pre-diabetic, so we both thought when my husband first got diagnosed he'd eat like me, lots of low-carb veggies, beans, and so forth. Well, it did not work. His numbers even got higher. So the lady is a vegan. She thinks, okay, my husband's not, and he's having trouble with his blood sugar, so I'll make him like me, make him a vegan. She says that didn't work. His numbers got worse. She said, then I stumbled across your channel a few months ago, and I mentioned to my husband to follow your channel. It has been eye-opening. He started to test an hour after a meal and then 2 hours after meals. It has helped us both. I love that. She says, I actually have cut down my own carbs. Well, that's awesome. There's a scripture that says, he that finds a wife finds a good thing. This man has found a good thing. He goes on to say, and obtains favor from the Lord. This lady was more concerned with her husband's health than she was with her own dietary preferences. And that is very smart. You know, the key objective is to get him, well, whatever diet works, whether it quite fits with your own preferences or not. And the thing that changed her mind, you know, initially she assumed, well, if he'd be a vegan like me, he'd be fine. She wasn't diabetic. She wasn't pre-diabetic even. So she assumes her husband needs to go the way she does, but it makes him worse. And so she checks his blood sugar, uses a blood sugar meter, and finds that's not working, and changes her mind and starts watching this YouTube channel and begins to realize that he needs to cut the carbs, and then lo and behold, she cuts the carbs. Well, it's amazing how your mind can change when you test your blood sugar and you find out what really works for you and what food actually does to you. All right, here is another comment left under one of my videos. This individual says, when I first got diagnosed with diabetes at the age of 40, I didn't take it seriously until I looked it up and read what diabetes actually involved or what it actually was. That scared me, and I was lost, got frightened, but in a good way because it ended up motivating this person. I took the pills the doctor gave me. They didn't agree with my body. I felt dizzy and fatigued. And, you know, people are so different. Some people can take high-powered diabetes medications and they feel just fine. Others, they feel terrible. This person didn't feel very well. And so they indicate that I stopped taking them. My blood sugar was getting worse. And as I was about to give up, all of a sudden, your channel came out as I looked for an answer on YouTube. It was like a God-sent message. Now I lost weight. My blood sugar level is on point. I owe it all to you, Mr. Pollard, for guiding me to a better me. Thank you very much. Well, I'd make one correction and say you owe it to God. I may have been the instrument that he used, but we want to give God the thanks for it. But, you know, very powerful what this, I think it was a man, I'm not positive, says, I was about to give up. And sadly, some people do give up. Some people just simply give up. They don't find the answers for whatever reason. And what happens is they get sick, they die, and, you know, that's the end of them, is a person that just gave up and just went on eating the way they always ate. I can remember years ago, I was watching an interview with a rock singer. And he had been in the dope scene like most rock singers were in those days. I can't speak about today. I'm not involved in rock. I don't watch or listen to it. But anyway, this guy was a rock singer back in, the old days when rock singers were notorious drug users. And he mentioned how that he looked around and he saw guys like Jimi Hendrix and a lady named Janis Joplin and some of the other rock singers, and how they were all dying off. And he said, I came to realize that that's what dopers do. They die. And he thought to himself, I don't want to be like them. I don't want to die in my youth. And so he quit doing dope. Well, I could paraphrase that and say that's what diabetics do. They get sick, they get weak, they have all kinds of problems, all kinds of complications, and often, not always, but often they die way too young. So the smart thing to do is look for answers, and when you find them, stick to them. Okay, this one is from a lady about a video I did where I talked about weight gain, and I talk about something that I frequently mention, which is that you still got to watch your portions. You just can't eat too much, no matter what you're eating. So she says this, you answered so many of my questions. You took away the thinking of, well, what's wrong with me that I don't lose weight while eating low carb and yet pigging out on allowed foods. So she wasn't pigging out on chips and donuts and, fruit pies and drinking lots of sodas. She says, I was pigging out on things like 7 chicken legs sitting in cheese and a huge helping of real butter on my Brussels sprouts. And she says that can also cause weight gain. Well, there are some rules that have been fixed in the universe. And one of those rules is if you eat too much, you will gain weight. I know there's a lot of keto folks that try to pretend that's not a rule, and they suggest you can eat as much as you want. But the truth is it's as much a rule as gravity. Gravity works for everybody. And if I jump off a barn, I will fall to the ground and hurt myself. And if an Australian jumps off a barn, he will fall to the ground and hurt himself. If an African jumps off a barn, he'll fall to the ground and hurt himself. No matter who it is, or whether you're an old or a young person, or a heavy or a slim person, you jump off the top of a barn, you're probably going to hurt yourself, and you're definitely going to fall. So that's a fixed law. And one of the fixed laws is if you eat too much, and you don't exercise any self-control. Oops, I said that dirty word, self-control, but it's true. If you don't use any kind of self-control, you're going to be big. And if you see a person that is extremely obese, you can bet the bank that they eat too much. And unless they've got some exceptionally unusual freakish condition that happens to about 1 out of every, 10 million people. But, that's just the reality. Now, it's true that without trying too hard, you can go keto from a standard diet and you can lose weight. Absolutely, that's true. One big reason for that is when you go keto, at first, about all you know is what you cannot eat. And you don't have a big repertoire of meals and snacks and keto this and keto that. And so, you suddenly just cut out all kinds of foods and snacks that you used to eat. So, of course, you're going to lose weight. And in a sense, you're not trying. You're not, saying, oh, how can I lose weight? You're just doing keto. But the main thing is I can't have this and I can't have that. And I've got to give up the potatoes and the rice and the candy and the cakes and the pies and the donuts and the pretzels and the bagels. And, well, you just give up so much. Now, after you've been doing keto a while, you start figuring out, some substitutes you can have. And then you find all kinds of keto snacks in the grocery stores that you can pig out on, and keto recipes on YouTube that you can pig out on. And so that can stall your weight loss, and you can even start to go back the other direction. Some people simply eat out of habit, though. Another factor in keto is you tend not to be as hungry, because when you're eating a high-fat diet, the fat will satisfy you. But some people, they don't eat because they're dissatisfied, because they're hungry. They eat because it's a habit. You're going to have a big breakfast because I've always had a big breakfast. You're going to have a big lunch because I've always had a big lunch. So I used to have a big high-carb lunch. Now I'm going to have a big low-carb lunch, but I'm still going to have a big lunch because that's the way I always did it. That's the way Mama brought me up as a kid. Big breakfast, big lunch, big supper, big late-night snack before you go to bed. Big, big, big. And so you can do that with keto as well. And, there are a lot of rules that we have grown up with. Now, not rules written in some kind of a commandment that, has been handed down to you by a church or a synagogue, but they're still rules that are in our thinking. They're rules that have been drilled into our mentality. And we got to break free. There's a lot of these rules that are not written in stone. They were never given by Moses along with the 10 Commandments. They're just simply cultural things that we grew up with. One of those rules that you really need to let go of is that dinner needs to be your big old whopping meal. Some people think, well, I can have a light breakfast, I can have a light lunch, but boy, when it's dinner time, I am going to have me a big old helping of this and I'm going to have my plate, up to the gills. And then when I finish that, I'll have it again. And when you go keto, you say, okay, I can't have mashed potatoes and gravy. I'm not going to have a big mound of rice, but boy, I'm going to pile on the meat and pile on the eggs and, pile on this and pile on that and have a huge salad and pour in a lot of salad dressing on top and so forth. My friend, there is no rule that says you have to have a monster dinner. When you have your 6 p.m. or 6:30 or 7 p.m. meal, your final meal of the day, there is no rule. There are no dinner police that are going to come and arrest you if you eat a light dinner. And the truth is, for most of us, that's exactly what we need to do. And there are other rules as well. The idea that you have to have breakfast. Breakfast is the most important meal of the day. If you don't have breakfast, you're an idiot. You're a simpleton. You're not in the true wisdom. There is no law. There are no breakfast police that are going to come and knock on your door and arrest you and haul you off to jail because you didn't eat breakfast. It's true, Mama may look at you a little strangely and say, well, did I not raise you to have a big breakfast or have some kind of a breakfast? But you don't have to. And for me, having a cup of bulletproof coffee is my traditional breakfast, usually about twice out of the week these days. And I kind of change, my dietary habits change and evolve a bit here and there. But these days, right now, it's usually about twice a week. Saturday is kind of a celebration breakfast where I will eat breakfast, usually some low-carb pancakes and a couple of pieces of sausage. And it's, like I said, it's kind of a celebration. It's not a work week, and I feel under a little bit less pressure to really get going, so I'll slow down, watch a little more news, eat a nice breakfast, have a Bible study with Benedicta, and it'll just be a nice, relaxing Saturday morning. So I look forward to that. But most of my breakfast, 5 out of the 7, are just going to be a cup of bulletproof coffee. So, and again, there's no rule. Here's another rule some people follow. That is, you have to have a different meal every night. And that's exactly what we did at my household when I was growing up. We had it didn't matter that we only ate half of the last night's dinner. Mom would put it in the refrigerator, and those would be what they would call leftovers. And so those would be brought out maybe for lunch. But every night the dinner had to be different from last night. And so, one night spaghetti, one night meatloaf, and one night noodles and gravy and beef and, just different things. But you couldn't possibly eat the same meal 2 nights in a row. I mean, that was just wrong. And that's how I did, in my early adult years. But these days, I don't. When I make a big chunk of spaghetti squash, heat up a whole spaghetti squash, it's enough to feed me for some days. And I'll make a big old pot of spaghetti sauce with a lot of beef in it, a lot of hamburger in it. And I'll eat the exact same meal. And, I'll often test my blood sugar the morning after, and it'll be right close to the one before. Because typically when you're eating similar meals, you get similar fasting glucose levels the next morning. So there's a lot of rules that we grew up with. They were just drilled into our head by repetition. Not that, Mama told us you have to do it this way, but that's how she did it. That's how we did it. But some of those aren't really so good for us. So anyway,